All About Writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 56, part 9, on our series on writing life. I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who is an award-winning, best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter.
And I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher. And today, on our series on writing life, we're going to talk about the question that kind of gets to the core of all of why we spend hours agonizing over our words. But why do you write? And what are your real writing goals? Because once you know what those goals are and acknowledge them, it kind of makes the writing process hopefully easier, or at least gives you some sort of like pedestal to aim for, or at least have an end goal, because it's such a fluid thing for me. Thinking about your goals, it's like, well, you get a book published. Well, what about, it's like give the mouse a cookie, right? Well, but then you need another book. Well, then you need a series. Well, then you need a bestseller. Then you need to be Dan Brown. I mean, where are your true writing goals, and why do you do it? And I think that that's just, I mean, we can dive into the psychology of this, but I think just kind of talking about what we have, and then, with our benchmarks, maybe we'll help other people, put little post-its on their walls too, and then feel
Absolutely.
fulfilled.
Yeah. Because writing is hard work. There's no question. It's a slog sometimes. It takes a lot of time, and it takes time to get good at it. And then there's all the publishing and all the other stuff. There's a lot behind it. And so you do need motivation to do writing. And I think that's why it's important to understand, why do you write? And Sara and I are definitely going to talk about why we write, and hopefully that'll resonate with our listeners. But we really want you to think about, why do you write? So, Sarah, I'm going to throw the question to you first. Why do you write?
I think there's two answers to that question, if I really, really want to be honest about it. And the
Mhm.
first is that I can't not write. I'm happiest when I'm writing. If all I did was work in like the copper shop as a coppersmith, I'd be a really angry, tetchy person, always physically broken, and have no other creative outlet. I am happiest when I'm sitting at my desk writing or researching, or both. So, okay, I do it for personal joy, but also because I want to share what I have in my head with other people. And I would love to consistently see those books sold, just because it means I'm sharing those stories. I feel like they're good stories, especially because I write historical fiction. I feel like I'm sharing knowledge that would otherwise be lost to history and posterity. And so there's a lot of just, I want to share, I want to share, I want to share. And if I'm never hugely famous, I'm really okay with that. I just want to sell books consistently because it means I'm sharing consistently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Did
yeah,
I?
I agree with you on certainly on the first point about how, for me, writing is a compulsion. Like I have to do it. And sometimes life gets busy, and there have certainly been seasons in life where not a lot of writing gets done, because I'm busy with my job, or I'm busy with little kids, or, whatever. But I still want to find the time to write. And I'm a much, much, much happier person when I am writing well. And I recognized that a long time ago. Like, I wrote my first short story when I was 12, and it became this obsession of mine all through high school. And then university came along, and I was at military college, so I had a lot of other things demanding my time, but I still found the time to write. And I would write short stories, not a lot, nothing ambitious, just little things, but it just kept that fire going. And here I am, slightly older, and still finding the time is so important. If I'm not writing, then I'm not as happy as I would be if I am writing. And I just recognize that it's part of who I am. So that's the biggest reason to write. But like you said, Sara, it's not it's not enough just to write for myself. I do want to share it with other people. I want other people to be able to experience these stories that I thought of. And uh, it's really gratifying, to get that nice review, or to get someone say, "Hey, I really liked your book. Thanks, man. Makes me feel good."
Well, and I think, sometimes I hear, and the algorithms will only show you on social media people like you, right? So like it'll feel like the world is full of writers. And I do think there's a lot of avenues now, so it does feel like anybody can write and there's so many writers out there. But if you think about biologically, what we are aching to do is be storytellers. And until very recently, human history was only passed orally, and human knowledge was only passed through storytelling and memory that way. And every community was in a way isolated. So you needed a couple of people in every little community around the world to be natural vocational storytellers. So I think that it's a very human thing to want to share stories because it is a survival instinct in some ways. If
Yeah.
you like
And
dig into the nitty
yeah,
gritty of it, right?
certainly. I mean, like, there are ideas that I want to explore in my writing, which are often things that come from either my own experience, like, oh, that was a powerful experience. I want to dig into that. I want to explore that. I want to share that, or even my thoughts on the world around me, and like, oh boy, this is a big scary world, and I don't like it. I can't necessarily change that, but I can explore the ideas and sort of break down, well, why do I feel this way? What would I do differently? If I could do it. And writing is such an amazing avenue to do that, because I can explore ideas. Sometimes they're just things that I like, sometimes they're things I don't like. But either way, I can still dig into it, and I suppose it can be a form of therapy in some way. And not to be glib, that is actually one reason why people write, is a form of therapy, to sort of work through things that they're struggling with or
Right.
grappling with. And it's a very, very effective way to do it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think we're, you know, touching on several things: therapy, oral history, passing on of knowledge and human stories to make the next generation remember things or think of new things. And so, I mean, we're kind of getting outside of our own personal experiences, but I think, having goals, I think it's okay to have small realistic goals as well as maybe a pie in the sky one, but I wouldn't aim on some of the huge pie in the sky ones. I mean, aim for them, but don't hate yourself if you don't reach them. I mean, we all want to be uber famous, and in some ways at the same time I have no, and especially in this day and age, I do not want to be very famous. I think it's scary to be in a glass house, or
Yeah.
glass castle. Like that's just not interesting at all to me. I'm happy mid-list. Like I just want to coast in that mid-list where I'm slightly known but also slightly still anonymous. Just consistently selling. Um and I think those situations are also kind of, zeitgeist. People get that famous because they happen to have the right kind of book published at the right time in history, the right time of culture. It's so many things have to go right that are so out of your control that it's like, having big goals is great to aim for, but having smaller goals to aim for as a writer, I think, are kind of great things. Like sometimes it's like just aiming for 500 words a day. That's why you write, to put it on the page, or just getting published, whatever that looks like, self-published, indie published, traditional published, whatever. Or get, I mean, it's a journey, not a destination, because truly writing is one of those things you can do when you're 8 and 98. And so there's no end goal. Like, there, I made it, I'm done, I'm going to stop writing now.
Yeah.
No, right.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no finish line when it comes to writing, for sure.
yeah.
And I think the idea of setting goals, it is really important for people who are maybe just starting out in writing, listening to this. Um, yeah, it is great to be rich and famous, but don't bank on that as an author. Like, don't make that your goal. That's a nice stretch goal, maybe. But your goal should be just to, like, finish the book. That's your goal. Finish the book and get it out there. And that's a wonderful goal to have, and it's a worthwhile goal to have. As you said, Sarah, there's so many variables out there beyond the author's control, and frankly beyond the publisher's control, as to what's going to be rich and famous. Don't aim for that. Just be happy when it happens, sure, but that's not why we write. I think that's the key. It comes from inside, this compulsion, this desire to share our story or to tell new stories. One big part for me is imagination. Like I just have such a big imagination. I just love thinking of new things and just and helping, stretch the world a little bit with this new idea. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, and I think um when you have smaller goals, you're able to celebrate sooner and feel good about your writing, because I would say it's such, it is a lonely job, it's a lonely hobby.
Hmm.
And being able to kind of go out and go to your friends and family with these, I finished my book, or
Hmm.
I got a cover for my book designed, or whatever little steps along the journey. um those are kind of physical steps. I mean, we're kind of getting off of like the why we write internally. I mean, but if you need a physical why, I think those are really good goals to have. And other than that, I know people who like they only want to write their memoir, and not because they've lived a big life, but because their stories are human, and they might seem small, but they resonate, they believe with a lot of other people, and they just want to share what they've experienced, or maybe just enough so their family knows what they went through. Um, and they, I actually remember growing up, and my mother told me, she said, because my first book did decently, considering it was kind of like the first time I'd ever put a book out there. And she was like, don't feel bad if you don't ever have the same response to another book. Some people only have one book in them. And I, of course, did not agree with her. but but at the same time, she was giving me permission to be like, you accomplished something. Like, if your goal was to be a writer, you're now a writer for the rest of your life. That's enough. Like, you should feel like you're enough. And so I think too, that's, if you have goals like I just want to get published, and you get published and you're done, that's why you wrote. The end. So there is that side of the path too.
Yeah.
Which is just as important.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to our listeners, think about why you write. Is it just a, a creative, force within you, or is it for recognition, or is it to get a particular story out that you think the world needs to know? And these are all great reasons to write. Uh, but I encourage you to think about why you write and what is that, and figure out that goal, aim for that goal, and achieve that goal. It may take a while, but if you can keep your eye on the prize, you can get there. And then if other things happen after that that are bigger and better, fabulous. We'll be the first to cheer for you. Um, but but keeping your goals, close to your heart and real, I think, are very important here, because it can be a long slog, and writing can also be very lonely. Because it is something we fundamentally do by ourselves, and you need the motivation to get through that, that writer's block, or that rejection letter, or whatever it is that comes along that seems like an obstacle. Just keep believing. No, this is why I'm doing this, and this is important to me.
And I just want to finish on one note. You know how we always talk about our characters. When we create our characters, and our characters have an inciting incident, or they have a why this character, this character's kind of what's their underlying motivation. I think it's fair to say you as a writer have the same as any character you're writing to. So figure out what it is. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well said.
there we go. The
Well,
end.
that's
The
our
end.
show for everyone today. Yep, the end. So, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our chats, and feel free to leave a review, because it really does help us a lot. You can catch up with Sara at saradahman.com and on Instagram.
And you can find Ben at ben@rcoles.com, as well as Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again for joining us today. Please do reach out if there's anything else you want us to cover here. Otherwise, we will see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.